So we did an episode in May of 2021 on the topic of dreams with a wonderful sleep scientist by the name of Tony Zadra. His work and the episode were focused largely on the empirical, measurable aspects of sleep and dreams. But today we're really excited to be diving back into the topic, this time around playing with the more mysterious metaphysical nature of dreams. We have Machiel Klerk joining us today. Machiel, you are a Jungian psychotherapist. You hold workshops on dreaming, both at retreat centers and in-house at Fortune 500 companies. You're the author of this really interesting new book, Dream Guidance, Connecting to the Soul Through Dream Incubation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, we're really excited to have you. Now, I'm going to start by stacking multiple questions together here, which is not good form in interviewing, and we'll soon learn is not good form when you want to ask your dream a question either. But here we go. Machiel, how many dreams do you estimate you've helped clients analyze at this point? And I'm curious, do you feel like you've seen it all at this point, or are there still dreams you hear that absolutely terrify you or blow your hair back or surprise you in some kind of way?
I think the interesting thing of dreams is that they produce worlds. A dream is really a world that you find yourself in. And what the mind continues to produce really interesting, specific new worlds. All these worlds are always fresh and new. So every dream, even if it's somewhat of a familiar dream, as a monster chases a person or they run for the classroom and can find the classroom, it's always unique. There's a unique twist to the dreamer. So that is it always remains an interesting endeavor. And I'm not sure how many dreams I've worked with. I calculated it once. I think it was like 30 or 40,000 dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, if you have several a day and you do that times 25 years, then you can figure it out.
Right, absolutely. And can you tell us a little bit about how you became interested in dreams? Was this interest kind of blossoming at the same time you became interested in psychotherapy, or has it been a lifelong fascination of yours?
Yeah, in my early 20s, I was really in a dark pit. My father died when I was 10, and my culture and my family didn't know how to grieve, and consequently, I didn't grieve well. And so that unresolved grief had been building up and had created a really dark pit in which I found myself. And by some good fortune, I stumbled on the works of Carl Jung, who gave me some clues on how to understand dreams and to think and look different at the world. And that really broke open my somewhat limited world. I reconnected with a sense of purpose. I saw that dreams are actually also provide both kind of an X-ray as a guidance on where life wants to flow, and life changed so much for the better. So then I did hang on to dreams and psychotherapy, and interested ever since.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Are you a pretty vivid dreamer, Machiel?
Yeah, most of the time. I don't remember every night, but I've also noticed if you show an interest in dreams, dreams seem to be more vivid, more intense, and more frequent.
For sure. Yeah, I got into a practice myself of writing my dreams down over the last couple of years as Rising Laterally has dived deeper into the Jungian content. And I think the number of dreams, the amount I remember, the level of vividity, if that's a word, in the dreams has all gone up over that period of time. Yeah. I'm curious, after like working with dreams for 25 years, what were you hoping to accomplish when you wrote this book?
Well, I was deeply indebted to the world of dream and its inhabitants, because they pulled me out of the pit when in my early 20s. And without dramatizing, I think if I hadn't reconnected with a sense of purpose, I might just have become an alcoholic or a drug addict and have died young. And so it was really a life-saving act that I felt that the dreams were throwing out a lifeline. And after that, I had dreams that helped me, gave me an idea for building a business. So I built a company called the Jung Platform based on a nighttime dream. I've started noticing that dreams sometimes spontaneously give advice and help. You can ask them. So I was so thankful to the dream for the help. and I wanted to share that with other people and give them a technique or a tool that they can ask their dream a question and live a bit of a better life as a result.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely get into how you might recommend effectively framing a question for your dream. Before we get there, though, I think a lot of people have heard the term like dream analysis or dream interpretation. You have
Mhm.
this really interesting word, incubation. Could you tell us what incubation means in this context and why we're using a sort of novel word here?
Incubation is uh, a term in which you hold a question or or something inside yourself. It's almost like your own body becomes a vessel in which you contain a question or a state of energy, and by holding that tightly, somehow there will be a response from your dream and the universe and the imagination to this incubated vessel that we are. So
Mm,
that's where incubation comes from.
yeah. And is your mind, is it still kind of a mystery in your mind where that wisdom is coming from? I know there's neurological elements here, psychological, metaphysical. Where do you think the wisdom is coming from? Who is speaking in the dream? Take that however you mean it to be curious to get your thoughts.
In the beginning and the end, it's a mystery, and then you can give some names to the mystery, like
Mm,
the larger awareness. There seems to be a larger awareness. Some awareness is larger than us, that is deeply intelligent, is wise, can give advice, can even cause healing. And I think it goes by many names. And that's the mystery, or some people call it the collective unconscious, or the divine, or God, or whatever term, the unknown,
yeah, Morpheus, right? Yeah,
Morpheus.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Very
It's like
cool.
it's like the wisdom that is in us. I mean, I'm thinking about this right now. We have this concept that everything comes from within us. Our answers come from within us. What we experience is coming from within us, but it's sounding like dream incubation and this practice is taking that to another level to a certain extent, because in addition to everything coming from within you, in terms of your perceived experience, now this is kind of thinking about it like, okay, answers may also be coming from within the dream that's within me. So it's kind of like a Russian doll set. It's a little bit it tickles your mind to think about it in terms of how far you can go within. And it's interesting because I don't know about you, but if I look at an owl and I see those eyes, I feel like I can see the ancient wisdom that's in that animal. And maybe what you're alluding to is that there's a similar type of ancient wisdom that lies within us. And so this is a really interesting practice that you exposed us to. Um, I also think that relative to what you're saying, maybe we can use dreams as a way to break through limiting beliefs. Maybe
right.
we can use dreams to be even more radically curious. Maybe this is how you start to unlearn what you think you know. And, dream incubation is a practice that kind of forces you to do that.
Yeah. Well, I love multiple things you bring up. The Russian doll layered psyche that we are. It's like I've learned I was born in South Africa, so I trained a lot with these African indigenous healers, and they also said we the human are this little self is the front man of a larger enterprise, and we are here, and in this larger enterprise there are ancestors and dream beings, and in their tradition spirit beings, and all kinds of beings that form this conglomerate that we call me, that we give a name, Machiel, but it's
Right.
actually built up out of multiple layers, and some layers are far more intelligent and wise and capable to heal the body or ourselves or come up with creativity than the little self that is talking now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wanted to kind of explore that idea of the limiting belief. I'm actually currently training to become a coach right now, and one of the big concepts in coaching training that we're talking about and sort of experimenting with clients with is working through limiting beliefs. And I'll give you a very clinical definition from the program that I'm in. Limiting belief would be, quote, a generalization, stereotype, or idea that you learned and accepted about yourself, about the world, or about other people that limits you in some way. So an example would be this limiting belief that I'll never be financially secure because it's impossible for someone like me to make money, or I'll never become an artist because there's no market for the kind of art that I create. I'm just kind of curious, after having worked with so many folks in psychotherapy, if you might be able to sort of shed any light around what you think a limiting belief is, and maybe like at what level of the individual the limiting belief is operating it. Is it like an ego thing, or where do you locate it?
Yeah, great. So we have these habitual patterns, and so we could also say that the I or the ego is a habitual consciousness, and habitual consciousness responds in habitual ways. And we all know we go home at Christmas, and gosh, there you talk with mom again, and you go, oh my gosh, there goes mom again, and there's my habitual response. In itself, that's a limiting activity, a limiting belief. And we have limiting beliefs on a lot of levels, from I can't become an artist, or I can't earn money, or people don't like me, or I can't find love. But even limiting in the way we respond to family members or loved ones in the same limiting way. And what pops now into my mind, because I was home over Christmas with my mom, and I had she did something, and I had this response, and I felt, oh gosh, there I go again. At night, I had a dream in which I saw the soccer player Messi. And Messi jumped in the air with 2 feet, and he caught the ball between his feet and brought it back down, and then very agile was walking back. And I thought, gosh, that is the energy that I need to break this limiting belief. Because then I went, instead of using all my mind, I went back in the dream and just felt into jumping up and catching the ball and being so agile. And then I brought that agile way back into the conversation with mom. And at once, I wasn't limited by my habitual pattern. I was like, oh, now I can do this. Oh, this is fun. And that was a way of breaking the habitual limiting structure. And dreams automatically do that. Dreams will bring in, whether we ask them proactively or not, will bring in characters that are trying to break open that limiting fixed self that we identify with. So you might meet the angry cab driver, or even the big rock that's on the road, or the car that drives really solid. Those are all states of consciousness. And when you connect and embody those states of consciousness, you infuse your habitual pattern, and that will then transform into a more adaptable state. And then you identify with that, and then you need more dream so that you continue to be a fluid, adaptable individual.
Yeah, I really like that metaphor. That's really powerful. It kind of speaks to me in the way that not only is the dream this mysterious creation that's coming to you at night, but it also takes a certain level of creativity going into the dream and to effectively interpret the dream. Because someone could have had that, been the same situation that you were in and had that same dream and thought that they dreamt of Messi because they watched a soccer game the night before and not have seen that connection. I'm just curious, maybe as a segue here into asking how, figuring out how to ask our dreams or effectively phrase the questions for our dreams. Did you go into that dream that night with a specific question in mind around how you might change the interaction with your mother, or did it just sort of come to you?
No, I didn't. But what you see is dreams are not only responses to the day before. The dream also anticipates the future. So we dream about what we are about to become. So you see in these dreams characters that are parts of the future you, if you can bring them in. So we can all look, even if without asking a question, you can just look at who is visiting in the dream, and what. And so there's a completely different question. And what does this mean? Who is visiting? Oh, Messi is visiting, and Messi is very agile and is doing these things. So some agile energy is visiting, and then I can start relating to it. So it is less interpretive and more relational, engaged, and embodied, and that is that really breaks open, because it's one thing to say, well, Machiel, you should be more flexible when you talk to your mom. Yeah, that's one thing, but how? And the dream gives you a character that shows you, oh, this is the way you can do this. This is how it feels in your body. So that is that is one way of working with dreams. What you also alluded to is you can ask your dream a question. You could ask questions as, dream, what is what is the biggest limiting belief that I have right now? What is the blind spot that I have? And then your dream will start showing what it is.
So if you're in that situation and you're trying to shy away or, lean away from really interpreting it, but you want to know if the answer in your dream is true, like, how do I know how honest the answer in the dream is?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that that it is a bit of an art versus that you can get to a very hard science. Like maybe this dream I had about Messi plays out on multiple levels. But what I notice is, hey, if I engage with this energy, it's really a great energy that helps me do the following thing, and therefore it's helpful. It works, and so in Dutch and German you have two words for reality. One is say reality, and the other is in German is Wirklichkeit. And Wirklichkeit means that what works. And so you have reality that comes from the Latin res, means thing, thingliness. So the table is a thing,
right,
in terms of reality. But then you have also reality as that what works. And so maybe I cannot prove in a scientific way that it is real, but if I do certain things, I have a certain effect that so there's a working quality that comes from it. And if dreams work, then if they're effective, then then it's something to go with. But there is an art to it. It's hard to say exactly.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's easy to focus when the outcomes are positive? I'm curious around, have you ever thought about some of the pitfalls associated with dream incubation and if it can turn evil?
Yeah, it's a question that when I was in Africa, that a lot of people asked me, and I think also because the culture there has more a notion that there are evil spirits, and that you need to be a bit careful with evil spirits, etc. And sometimes people go to the medicine man to put a spell on someone, and so I assume that leans into them asking that question. But I think that dream incubation works if you are interested in it, by which you become open. And so this openness can also be used for negativity. The criminal will also have an intuition on, oh, the cops are coming, or I can break in this the best way. So intuition works, and dreams also support. And that's probably because there is free will, and free will help you. If you want to go this direction, that's fine. If you want to go that direction, it's also fine. It's just that on the darker path, the consequences are so you just don't become happy. You become paranoid. Life is already difficult enough. So why would you do that to yourself? But yeah, you could do it if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's a pretty spooky thought, at least for me, thinking about this wisdom as not being purely beneficent. I mean, that's just the universe, right? I mean, the universe is light and dark, light and shadow. There are darker forces to the human nature. So it is interesting that if you were to choose, you can kind of tap into that darker side of intuition as well. But to your point, it's probably going to eat at you, or that the way you injure others will in some way turn into injuring yourself at some point down the line. And kind of reminds me of that German word too, of like reality being something that works, because usually behaving badly in the long run does not work. So it's ethics. I think our ethics come not just from like ideals, like theory. They come from the behaviors that work in society over really long periods of time. Yeah, I guess so. Maybe we could hop then into how we could better ask our dreams for a wisdom, and how we might think about phrasing those questions, and maybe even like what types of questions to avoid, as they may not really produce any response from the dream world.
Questions that you're emotionally invested in, or that are of medical nature, those are questions that the dream answers. And of course, then and they did research at Harvard University, and they also had a test group with something like 63 people, and did this technique. And they noticed that people that were emotionally interested in the answer, or had a medical issue, they had helpful dreams. If the question was too theoretical or too abstract, or something like what I don't really care about is what my neighbor eats tonight, so for dinner. So if I would say, dream, what does my neighbor have for dinner? My dream probably will not respond. If I really wanted to know, probably it would. It's hard to test because I don't really want to know. Even if I tell myself, I still don't care. but, but but any question that a person that watches or listens to this, that just pops into their mind. What have they been wondering today? What are they working on? How can I grow my business? Why am I so irritated? How can I be more loving to myself? What is one of the limiting beliefs that hinders me? Those are all great questions.
Because they're specific, it seems like.
Yeah, specific helps. Specific, and your interest is there. And to phrase the question, you want to make just one question at a time. Make sure it's open ended, but it starts with choose a heart-based question. And usually we walk around with questions. Some bigger questions as, am I in the right relationship? Or how do I find love? Or how can I connect deeper to gift and purpose? To, I was so irritated today. I have no clue why. Dream. Am I? What is there anything I could confront that would be helpful?
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like part of the practice, you're setting this intention, you have an open-ended question with emotions in it that's specific to you that you want to work on. Earlier, we talked about keeping a dream journal to help with this type of practice. Are there any other components to dream incubation practice that I'm thinking around, like right before I sleep, if I stretch or if I put my mind in a state of calm, is that going to help with dream incubation? And also, should I be visualizing this? Like, should I be visualizing my own dream before the dream actually happens, or is that cheating?
No, all the other things that you mentioned are great. So there's two components that on which this technique really hinges. One is having the right question, the right intention, something that's really really on your mind. And let's say it is, what is one limiting belief that hinders me the most right now? And the other is ritual. And with ritual, I really mean put in time, focus time, treat it as if you are visiting this 2 million-year-old wise woman or man. And this person, this figure knows you, knows what your limiting belief is, knows how you can be more happy, knows what would be good for your diet. And so you're visiting this wise character. Now, how would you do that? Talk to it, spend some time, not just like, hey, give me the answer, but gosh, I would be so grateful if I would receive an answer. And if I know my limiting belief, I promise I will start working on it. And then my life becomes better, and also the people around me become better. And then maybe I make a drawing, or I do a dance, or I sing. And you see that all these cultures throughout history that did this technique, they all did a ritual. And it is not so much what ritual you do, because one does lay on your back, another is drink milk, and the other is don't drink milk. It's more that you do something that shows respect, that shows that you pay, that you put time in it. Sometimes they would walk for days, and then all those days that they would walk to the temple, that would just pump up their expectation. They would pump up their intent, their belief, their dedication. And that is the other ingredient that is really helpful and that makes this technique successful.
Yeah, so to kind of concretize this with an example, I was actually in an art store in San Francisco this past weekend, kind of been dabbling with sketching and stuff like that recently, but I was drawn to this little like 3-inch by 3-inch book, and I don't know why, but I bought it. And after reading your book and getting to the part where you talk about establishing a ritual before asking a dream for wisdom, I thought about maybe using that book. It kind of opens, like this, and having on one side the question, and then maybe on the other side drawing like a little image associated with that question. Do you think that would be a good starting place to build a ritual around?
I love it because it comes out of you. It's your imagination. You get excited about it. I could see it. So it comes from your heart, and that makes already a ritual a good ritual. And then if it works once, you'll do the same thing the next time, and then you get that expectation factor that also co-creates reality. That will make it even more likely that you get a great answer. That is just like in Pavlov, they ring the bell and the dog starts self-eating. It's the expectation, and expectation creates reality. If I expect that people like me, then I have a positive limiting belief. And if I expect that people don't like me, I start behaving that way, and people start behaving that way. And so what you do then is you enhance the expectation factor. And what you said to Arjun about laying in bed for a couple of minutes and meditating on it, that's really great, because that state really moves into the dream state. A lot of Tibetan and general Buddhists do that to practice compassion, because they noticed, hey, if I practice compassion just before I fall asleep, I will have more compassion in my dream state. It just moves on. So those are all great things.
Yeah, it's interesting we're talking about that. You've mentioned ancient cultures a number of times, and we were just talking about rituals. I mean, in preparation for this, you alluded to your own visit in Greece around the ancient temples that people would visit to sleep in hopes of receiving their dreams. But the same stuff took place in ancient Egypt, where people would sleep in the temple of, their god to try to find a solution to their problem. Native American cultures, they would enter the trance through drumming and chanting, and that's how they would receive guidance. And it's a known thing. It's a known practice in African cultures, Chinese cultures, Indian cultures. I mean, this is really interesting because it has spanned throughout our history as a practice that civilization and tribes have really taken up.
Yeah, and what I also learned in these African from these African shamans that I work with is that a good ritual really grinds open this reality, and allows the other world to flow in. So you get a merging of this reality with the other world, and the other world is the description for the world that coexists to this world, inhabited by ancestors or beings or dream figures. And how do you find a way to be open to it? And that's very close to what we will call a flow state. And that flow state is just emerging with the other world. And ritual is one way you can get there. Trance, drumming, whatever. We'll get to.
Yeah. As I was taking your book in and doing some extra research on this, I was thinking to myself that this sounds like people who are having a psychedelic experience or psychedelic journey, but without the LSD or without the plant medicine. And, you allude into your book, like the pilgrimage that people would take, the mood, the setting, these beautiful temples with just gorgeous views that would aid in the journey of being open-minded as they approach the dream. And I really thought like there's a connection there. What makes it more interesting is that at the beginning of this conversation, Jay alluded to Dr. Zadra. And, one of the things that we learned in that conversation is what's happening in your brain when dreaming is really interesting. Number one, your brain is taking everything that it's, experiencing. It's trying to actually process everything. It's looking for weak associations to see if the brain needs to store them. So your dreams sometimes have these really bizarre connections or bizarre scenes in them relative to your normal waking state and relative to what you would normally see. So I found that really interesting. And then add to that, there's one time every day when serotonin is completely blocked, and that's during REM, like rapid eye movement. So that's important because if you think about the hallucinations and the weirdness that it might come from an LSD trip, that's a direct result of the block of serotonin. And so think about that. Your body has this natural psychedelic feature taking place every single night where it turns off serotonin, allows your dreams to create these weak associations. And so in the context of the dream incubation, practice and what you've been saying, if you've been getting hyped up all day, anticipating this, and you're feeding your brain all these inputs about the experience that you might experience when you're sleeping in the temple of God, then maybe your brain is looking for these weak associations. And maybe in those cases, people are seeing gods and answers and experiencing this healing factor that may not have taken place in their normal waking state. And it's all in your mind. So I don't know. I'm just trying to create connections between what happens in your brain when you're when you're dreaming to this type of experience, and seeing basically, are you just having a psychedelic journey without the plant medicine or LSD?
My answer would be yes to that. I think that the dreams is just a small dose of the psychedelic journey that if you would take plant medicine, but it's also like these indigenous cultures call that there's an other world, and this other world is not in some distant galaxy. It's coexisting to this reality, right. And that's what we would call the collective unconscious. And it is not. It is porous, so it flows in and out. When we daydream, actually, that is even a microdose from a night dream, and a microdose from a plant medicine. And with all these dreams, what you notice is they're worlds. So there's not a message that you get. You're in a world. A dream is a world you find yourself in. Plant medicine is a world you find yourself in. Even if you read a book, you start seeing the environment around you. That is your imagination creating a world. And so these worlds are really very fluid. And through ritual, you can allow these worlds to come in. But daydreams and books will do that too, and plant medicine will get you in that other world really fast and really stable. But the dreams do also provide that, and then on a nightly basis, and will have the same effect over time. That it really can transform a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me of this quote from the Jungian author Robert Johnson. He said, quote, "I believe that everybody dreams all the time, 24 hours a day. It is as if there is a cinema screen in the back of your mind on which a drama takes place all the time. The dream goes on all the time, day and night, but one catches the dream more easily at night because one is quiet enough. But it is possible to catch your dream in the daytime." That was from, I think, a documentary called Slender Threads. But yeah, I really like that. I like that idea.
Beautiful. Yeah, that fits totally with this notion that imagination or there's a world creating power that creates this world, that creates the dream world, that creates all these worlds, and they're all kind of coexisting and interconnected.
Totally. So you've maybe brought a question into your dream. You have what seems to be some kind of wisdom returning to you. What do you do from there? Like, how do you manifest that wisdom into your waking life?
Well, first of all, you really need to write down the dream upon waking, because at night your short-term memory stops working, and so you have all kinds of experiences that you don't remember, and it only comes back when you wake up. And if you don't write it down, it evaporates. It also that indicates what I'm always fascinated by is actually your mind is awake all the time, even that 8 hours in bed at night. You're just no longer not aware of it, or you don't remember it.
True.
And you also don't mind it. It's not that you think, oh my gosh, I'm just 8 hours bored here in this bed. You have all kinds of experiences, but your mind is awake. It just forgets it. And so you have to write it down. And half of the dreams I've noticed are pretty clear. People go like, oh yeah, I see what this means. The other half, weird, strange, initially looks banal, ordinary, or no clue. Make sure you write it down, because those dreams usually give an answer from an angle that you haven't thought about yet. So it's really creative new information, and you just haven't, you just don't see it right away. Let it simmer. Throughout the day, you might have, it doesn't really stop. The dreaming goes on 24/7. So you might have a synchronistic event. I might follow up the billboard, or the song on the radio that that you go like, oh yeah, gosh, that. Or share the dream with someone and see what they say. Or 2 hours later, you read it again, and it's like, oh yeah, now I see it. So don't give up on it.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that. You said that basically like tell somebody about your dream. I'm interested. That's interesting. Imagine maybe that's a way of strengthening this muscle. I know I struggle with remembering dreams. I feel like I couldn't tell you the last time I remembered a dream. So maybe in addition to writing them down, maybe it is talking about them throughout the day, whether that's to yourself in the mirror or to your friend. Maybe it's just constantly thinking about the dream and reflecting on it. And then to your point, as you let that simmer and as you let it come out of your mouth and you share the story, maybe in that process, not only are you going to be better at remembering your dreams, but you're going to find answers from different angles.
Beautiful. Yes. And the chance that you will have a dream tonight or remember a dream just has increased by us having this conversation. And if you
believe that. I believe that.
And then write it down tomorrow, even if it's like, oh gosh, I was walking in the supermarket, that was nothing. No, write it down. And then and maybe what was the feeling? Oh, I noticed that I was a bit anxious. All right. And where in your body did you feel that? Oh, in my stomach. Okay. And then you bring that back and think about it. You don't need to interpret it. Just you have acknowledged the dream, and then the next night, maybe you ask a question. Say, gosh, dream. Been thinking about how can I love myself more deeply. Beautiful question. And then you probably will have a dream that will show you, because there is something in the depths of the soul or the psyche that's interested in helping and educating. And it will, even if you turn if you turn into dark questions, It will even from time to time say, oh, you're not going to be happy there. But it will allow you to do it because there's radical free will. So you can do technically can do anything. But if you say what works best, well, be joyful. And so it will help you to be more loving. But ask a question, talk to the dream, do your ritual. You'll have a dream in the next, probably tonight, and otherwise in the next 3 days. And
Yeah, beautiful. I'm curious, there's probably not a one size fits all answer to this question, but if you are falling into a habit of having like really vivid nightmares night after night after night, is it possible that you're still in like a reasonably healthy or positive place in your waking life, but like the nightmares, I guess what I'm asking is, you'd think if you're having nightmares over and over again, something's really wrong. But I think back on my own life, and I've gone through periods where I have had really vivid nightmares, but I felt like things are pretty decent and I'm pretty happy, and my life is pretty meaningful. So I've always been sort of perplexed by that ostensible dissonance. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
well, let's say we are this conglomerate of figures. So we're 12 figures in one, and maybe 7 do really well, 3 do so, and 1 is not so good, and the other is not doing well at all. Then in general, you might have the feeling, oh, things do go well. However, one character in you is either overly anxious, is traumatized, lacks courage, because you can lack courage in one area and have it in other areas. That's the crazy thing of it. And so one character, if you have a repeating nightmare, there's some character in you who is struggling, and the best thing to do is turn towards it, turn towards that what struggles, and depending on the nightmare. But nightmares, for people that listen to it, nightmares are just dreams that try to awaken you to a certain situation with a lot of force. So they try to awaken you to something that doesn't go so well, or where you're caught in an habitual limiting belief or a limiting pattern, and there's should help to break out of that. So
that's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of problem solving that can take place through dream incubation, but when you're breaking through limiting beliefs, that also requires a level of creativity. Yeah. Like you need to really, and maybe a result of dream incubation, if you practice it over time, is enhanced creativity, is problem solving. And maybe if you face enough situations somehow, some way, that helps you with how you handle your own emotions, because you're living these scenes out in your dreams. And it's kind of like a practice round, so that when you are in your waking life, you have better emotional regulation. So that's what I'm kind of taking from this as well.
Yes, there's a storehouse of wisdom, creativity, and healing in our own psyche. Our own body knows you have a cut on your hand, the body, you clean it up, the body will heal. And that same intelligence is already present in the depths of our own being, and there's ways to engage with that. Ritual is a way. Dreaming through ritual is a way, and we can trigger creativity and for almost anything that is close to your life path.
Where are we in terms of research being done on dream incubation? I mean, is this something that is a field that is getting more attention, or I'm just curious around if you have any insight on the type of research that's being done on dream incubation.
Yeah, so it's not a whole lot, but Harvard University did research that was published in Scientific American, well-known scientific magazine, where they noticed that this technique works when they have asked a medical question or an emotional question, and if it's too abstract, it won't work. that is about the real research, scientific research on dream incubation. Somehow it comes back in any spiritual tradition around the world. So people have noticed, hey, this works, and they more or less figured out the steps it worked. And it's just what I distillated in that book of mine. From here are your 5 steps. This is what people have done throughout history. And what you see more and more is that there is more and more research around dreams in general, where it has moved from dreams are meaningless to dreams are chaotic. And that was a big shift, because chaos has order in it, and meaningless doesn't. So, hey, there's order. And then they looked at dream patterns for longer periods, and they were pretty well able to establish what a person's emotional life is about by following a person's dreamo for several years, because dreams are expressions of emotions. Then dreams have to do with memory formation. So if you learn something, if you've been skiing the whole day, you dream about skiing. If you're playing a computer game the whole day, you'll be playing computer games in your sleep. It's just and they've done a lot of tests that if people practice the whole day and do the test, or the people practice the whole day, sleep, and then do the test. And after sleep, they are significantly better, because their mind has consolidated the experiences. But I think the biggest thing that they see is that by embodying these dream energies, people really shift perspective. And in trauma research, they see it's not insight that changes trauma. It is the feeling of being safe and embodying a different state that shifts the ability to break out and through trauma. And dreams have that embodied quality that truly help people change behavior, and not insight alone.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know we're coming close to the top of the hour here. One area, though, that we didn't touch on, that was actually in the beginning of your book, that I thought maybe we could land the plane on, was this idea of the daemon. I was like super fired up reading about that part. It kind of helped me, the way you phrased it, break through some of my own self-doubt. And I think kind of going back to those words you shared earlier around your body and your psyche being a storehouse of wisdom, creativity, and healing, that resonated for me with that same idea of the daemon. I was wondering if you could kind of share with our listeners what the Greeks thought the daemon was, because it really helped me unlock a lot in a very short number of paragraphs. So maybe someone out there might experience the same breakthrough.
It's the Greek term for an spirit or a being that in their imagination was allocated to us at birth. So we come into the world with a soul, with a spirit that embodies qualities. And other traditions, the Roman tradition calls this the genius. So people would have a genius. People aren't a genius, they have a genius. So the soccer player has a soccer genius. The cook has a cook genius. The person that's really funny has a funny genius. And they allow that genius to flow through them. Then you get back again to that flow state where the other world and this world merge, and you and your daimon become one. And that's also the word that the Greeks used for happiness. It's this eudaimonia. When you and your spirit are seen together, are standing together, are working together, then you flourish. And that is a form of happiness. And of course, if you work in the yard and you don't have a yard daimon, you're bored to tears. So it's figuring out who or what is your daimon. And usually people have one dominant and maybe 2 or 3, 4 little ones. It could be drawing and cooking and making cars. And figuring out what your daimon is, and then giving form to that. and then you are happy. And this diamond lives in the world of dream, and so we can connect to this diamond. You can talk to it now because it's 24/7 there, but in dreams we can figure out. And then you get really to the topics of gift and purpose and meaning, but especially you have this diamond that wants to live through you into the world, and that's your gift. That's your gift to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And I think another idea too that resonated with me was that other people might not necessarily see that you have that diamond. And actually kind of reminded me of this quote from Henry David Thoreau: "Wherever you may seek solitude, men will ferret you out and compel you to belong to their desperate company of oddfellows." I heard that in a talk from Alan Watts this past weekend, and it may not be seeking solitude, but whenever maybe you seek something that's important to you that's not important to other people, people may try to convince you that you're doing something wrong. But there's something to be said for going with your gut, because I just like that idea of the mental entity of the diamond. It's not just your gut or intuition. It's like there's a genius inside of you that may be nagging at you to stay the course for a reason.
Yeah. Beautiful set. And then you have some of the problems. Once you connect it to the genius, very often you have a genius that no one in your family has. So the rest of your family doesn't recognize you. And then it's like, yeah, mom and dad didn't see me. Well, yeah. If you don't have a diamond that plays the piano, it's very hard to figure out, oh, you have one? And then it's very hard to even figure out how good this diamond is, because if you don't have it, it's hard to guess. And you will see things in the world that other people don't see. And that makes you, Carl Jung mentioned that as well. He said, sometimes people thought that I was a fool following the diamond. And they try to, sometimes well meant, pull you off your own path. And it takes a lot of courage to go with, gosh, I think this is what I need to do. And other people are like, no, invest more, invest less, go left, no, wrong market. And your diamond is like, no, this is it. And then try to stay the course. And then you have all these other people complaining. And that is why going your own way is actually sometimes really difficult.
For
because
sure.
Being loyal to that's where it comes down to.
100%.
It's the idea of fitting in versus standing out, and that's incredibly difficult to do when you have all this noise. And I think it's actually more reason to keep doing whatever you want to do, and it's even more reason to ignore the noise. No one else is living your life or your experience, so there's so much thought that goes into what other people are thinking, when the reality is that your only thought should be on, like, how can I take the next step to the best of my ability, basically. Like, how can I live my experience to the best of my ability? And that's all that matters. And I'm just going to follow my own genius, basically.
Yeah, that is crucial. And that's where the Greek says, then you flourish, then you're happy. We all tell each other, gosh, that is what we should be doing. But if a lot of people don't see it, what you see, then and you're just like, ooh, and it doesn't always work out. It works out most of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't mean your vision was wrong. Things can change. Then it becomes then it can be difficult. But
sure.
Also the only really meaningful thing to do in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and whoever you see out there that you admire, whether it be an actor or a musician or a thought leader in business, it's, you see them at the pinnacle, or once they've already earned the social proof that they're talented in this domain. But, I don't know anything about Brad Pitt's backstory, or Daniel Day-Lewis, or Jimi Hendrix, whoever it may be that it's your idol, artistic idol or otherwise. Like they may have had no one in their family that recognized their daemon, and they needed to trust themselves. And now everyone sees it, so it's easy to it's you see them once it's sort of been corroborated by the outer world, but a lot of those people probably had to go through a period of time where it was not corroborated, and they just needed to trust themselves and that voice.
Yeah, I think so too. I happened to watch recently a documentary on Jamie Dimon from US Bank Chase, of Morgan Stanley Chase, one of those banks. And he talked about that before the crash in the housing market, he wasn't speculating so much on the housing market because the risk was too high. So his returns were slightly lower than some of the other banks, and he got a lot of criticism for being so safe. Then the housing crash came. Everyone was in trouble, besides J.P. Morgan, and but he had to withstand a lot of people in the financial industry earning a lot of money, telling him that he wasn't doing so well. And then stay close to what you do is that's admirable. And yes, 20 years later, it's easy to see, okay, he's at the pinnacle, and sure, he did the right thing, but then he was doing a great job.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And the other character in the financial world that comes to mind is Michael Burry of The Big Short. He was with the short position, losing money for months and months and years, and then eventually it hit, and he was proven to be right. But it takes a lot of courage, and you got to deal with a lot of flack to stay the course. So I think that's just a really inspirational idea. A lot of inspirational ideas in your book. Again, the book is Dream Guidance: Connecting to the Soul Through Dream Incubation. Machiel, it was really fun both reading your book and having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Arjun.
I appreciate your contribution. I simply want to say that because of your book, because of this conversation, because of the preparation for this episode, I was exposed to more information about dreaming incubation. I was exposed to the history. You alluded to some of the studies that support the effectiveness of it. And so while I sit here and I might have some initial concerns that I still need to address, I'm much more open-minded. So I simply want to say thank you for your contribution.
Well, thank you. And for anyone that is skeptical, it's great starting place. Go play with this method. You sleep anyway tonight. Spend 10 minutes before it. Ask a heartfelt question. You can even say, hey, Dream, I don't know if this technique really works, but I would love to be a more loving person. What's one thing I can do? And then see what happens. And it needs to be your own experience that this works, because it's your own life and it's your experience.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.